Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Right On with Tom Fallwell. Today we have with us author C.G. Blade, who will be speaking with us and telling us about his books. I also have some news about some awesome events coming up and another book review from Reader's Review Room with Tracy Sanders. But before we get started, let me tell you just a bit about C.G. Blade, who is also one of our sponsors. C.G. Blade's pseudoverse novels are a sarcastic look into mankind's race to develop the first conscious artificial intelligence and achieve singularity. The problem is that most of the runners in this race are sadistic, hell-bent on destruction of DNA as we know it, and have a fondness for those missing a Y chromosome. Why, you ask? From cobalt to crimson to emerald, this is one wild, mysterious roller coaster ride as a hidden puppet master is slowly but surely gaining ground on humankind. C.G.'s newest novel, Onyx, goes back 26 years before Cobalt and explains the beginning of it all. Will humanity finally become steady? Tropa is all around us now as heliotrope starts to take shape. We hope you enjoy this little slice of science fiction heaven which fuses historical science fiction, satire, horror, and plenty of hidden Easter eggs along the way. Join us in liberating the pseudos from Pseudosynth Press Publishing.
This review can be found at readersreviewroom.com. This is for Parenting, a Work in Progress by Ellen Bukima. This book is a smorgasbord of information new or veteran parents might find useful. Being an experienced childcare provider for nearly 2 decades, I was already knowledgeable about most of the information concerning the developmental process and milestones for infants and toddlers, but I did glean a wealth of information about dealing with younger school-age children and teens, thankfully, because that happens to be my stage of life at the moment. As well, there were several funny anecdotes offered in this title. I mean, sometimes you just have to laugh at the crazy things kids say and do, or else you'll go crazy. See the part about sage advice from children in this book about 3/4 of the way through. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. The author also delved into sensitive information that many parents, in my opinion, don't put enough time and thought into, like allowing children to stay home alone. I agree with her that it should not be based on age but maturity. It was also impressive that she offered a readiness quiz that I think many parents will find helpful for this situation. This book offered several admirable tips on parenting, but one of my favorite passages in the entire book was titled Build a Better Mattress. I just loved it. You can find this about 60% of the way through the book. I would love to share it, but this passage alone makes the book worth reading, and I don't like to share spoilers. And if all these things weren't enough to make this a gold-rated book for me, this title is impeccably edited. For this and many other reasons, I highly recommend this book to any parent or child caregiver of any age. You may just learn something new. This review for Parenting, a Work in Progress by Ellen Bukima.
The Black Star Gambit, Book 7 in the Call Sex series by Jan Damagala, is coming available. There's a release party on Facebook on May 19th from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time that will feature a host of science fiction and fantasy authors that will entertain you with games, quotes, and plenty of surprises. I will be there myself at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so I hope you will come and visit and check out the great books that these authors have. It's on Facebook, so you can attend from the comfort of your home, even in PJs. You'll find a link to the event on the podcast page. This event is being hosted by Kay Cantus Author Assist, one of our great sponsors. Another great Facebook event coming up is The Storytellers, hosted by author Diane Morrison, to celebrate new releases of authors Sarah Berman, Rebecca Dodson, Kayla Kirby, and Diane Morrison. I will also be at this awesome event on Friday, May 19th at 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That's 12 noon Eastern Daylight Time. Come and meet many authors and learn about their works. The event lasts 3 days from May 19th to May 21st. Find a link to this Facebook event on the podcast page.
Are you a new indie artist looking for a way to market yourself? Maybe it's time to go indie now. Go Indie Now is an online platform that highlights, fosters, and supports indie artists of all art forms. Our shows on YouTube do everything they can to bring an audience to what you're doing. So head on over to goindienow.com, find our channel on YouTube by searching Go Indie Now, all one word, and remember, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you there.
All right, everyone, here we are again. We have another author to speak with us today. His name is C.G. Blade, and he has a series of books called the Trinity series that deals with artificial intelligence, which sounds like an interesting concept to play with. So without further ado, let me introduce you to C.G. and welcome. And why don't you tell us how and when you became an author?
Well, thank you for having me, Tom. I appreciate it. I have always been fascinated since a young child, reading the books of Heinlein, Asimov, Philip K. Dick, Ray Nelson, Bradbury, along those lines.
All the greats.
Yeah, exactly. I grew up reading the pulps, some of the old pulps that we had laying around, the old paperbacks, pocket paperbacks that they used to have.
Mm-hmm.
And also I was infatuated with the movies of the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, and the Universal horror monsters and the Hammer films, the Hammer horror films. I absolutely loved those. Was infatuated with them. Did a stint in the Navy. I did 8 years in the Navy. Did a lot of reading in the Navy. And then I went on to become an engineer and a software programmer and a robotic programmer. I actually ended up being a robotic engineer.
That's interesting.
Until I was hurt in 2010. I had a back injury, and I've had 10 back surgeries since then. So I've been disabled for the past since 2010. But when I was in college, I did a lot of writing. I enjoyed English, creative writing, stuff like that. I always took notes, did journals, said, hey, if I'm going to do a story one day, I want it to be something that nobody's ever read before, a new concept, something different.
Mm-hmm.
So I started jotting down a lot of notes in 2011 after my third surgery, and I sat here and said, I'm going to make this happen. No matter what, no matter who, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to write this book. It's been in my head for 20 years. So Cobalt came about. And basically, with my spine not regenerating, me not having the ability to regenerate, I kind of took that into account when I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
How can you re-engineer somebody? What would the pitfalls be? What would the high side be? What would the low side be? And also threw in a lot of sarcasm. I love sarcastic books. I love the smart-witted heroines and the smart-witted heroes. My books have been often referred to along the same line as the Steel Rat series by Harry Harrison. Although I did not take a lot out of those books, that's what they've kind of been compared to.
Mm. You're doing what I've seen a lot of authors do, is writing about what they know.
Exactly.
Stephen R. Donaldson, his series dealt with what's that thing called where their skin rots and their nerves don't feel pain.
Right.
And he knew about that, and that's what he wrote about with Thomas Covenant. And Asimov, anyone who read science fiction knows Asimov talks about what he knows. So.
Exactly, and that's what I tell a lot of people that I talk to and some aspiring writers is write what you know. Do that first.
Yeah.
If you want to delve into something else, be ready to do the research.
So give us a little synopsis of Cobalt.
Cobalt was basically Cobalt was basically out of a dream, and that's no lie. I woke up.
Oh, you're not the first to do that. Don't worry. I do the same thing.
Out of a dream. I woke up one night. I started jotting down notes. It was in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. I was in pain, and the next day, I was so energized by the thoughts that were going through my brain that I was filling up journals full of notes. So I said, I'm going to do something completely different that nobody's ever done before. I'm going to write down 50 of what I think are the most major people, places, and events in science fiction history, and I'm going to hide them in this book. So that's what I did. I put Easter eggs inside of Cobalt.
Cool.
Now, they may be dates, they may be numbers, they may be people's names that are anagrams, but they're in there. And I have the list tucked away in a safe. I was also going to do tributes to music that influenced me and influenced my life. So I've included some music inside. I do intermissions in the books. In the middle of the books, I do like a movie intermission. Get up, stretch your legs, go get something to eat, go get something to drink, like an old-time grindhouse movie theater. Mm-hmm. I also wanted the characters, the antagonists and the protagonists, to be pseudo humans who may or may not be who you think they are.
Yeah.
And obviously that's been done many times, but I tried to do it in a different way, where you think the story's going one way and it goes another way.
Yeah.
Now, Cobalt is actually two parallel stories happening at the exact same time. One of those stories was a homage to a friend of mine, Ray Nelson, who is a science fiction writer, who I corresponded with while I was writing Cobalt.
Okay.
Him and I corresponded back and forth. I sent him manuscripts. He'd send me stuff back. He'd say, well, maybe if you change this, the story's very, very hot. It's very good, but I think you need to change this. And so I was very, very fortunate to have the meetings with him that I did. Him being 84 years old and a good friend of Philip K. Dick was very, very, I was just so honored to even be talking to him.
So he was kind of like a mentor for you?
Right. So he became a main character in every book.
Oh, cool.
So I made him a main character along with everyone else in the book is a real person. They're an actual living, breathing. Every character in my books are living, breathing, real people. Even the cover art are real people. All their portraits were painted by a Ukrainian artist, Katerina Ventova, who I found early on. I loved her work. And I said, I want to know if you can do cover art for me that is comic book / pulp that would go back to like the 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to pay homage to the pulp writers that actually bled the way through their fingers. Bradbury being one of them, and Hubbard being another great one.
Yeah.
That bled their fingers on typewriters just to put food on the table.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is homage to them, homage to movies. There are so many Easter eggs throughout. There are so many hints throughout. I give you hints early on in the book as to who the main culprit is, but once you finish the book, if you read it again, you'll get it. So I did I did 30 drafts of Cobalt to make sure that it was as perfect as I could get it. And obviously, no book is ever perfect.
Yeah.
Never really completely, that.
Yeah. You're never satisfied quite. Not quite.
I am sure that you'd love to go back to your first book and say, oh, if I could just change this.
Well, actually, I'm rewriting my first book right now, so I understand.
Are you? Yeah, well, Cobalt, I use a lot of descriptions, and I purposely set up the first 14 chapters as a world-building setup for the series. So it's kind of an introduction, the first 14 chapters. After that, then the action starts, stuff starts to happen, it starts to roll along. And then in Crimson and Emerald, it just takes off like a rocket.
And you've got some more. You said you got 3 more books fixing to come out for this series, correct?
Yeah. After Crimson, I wrote Emerald, which is very psychotic. It's a psychotic novel. Deals a lot with artificial intelligence. The 4th book I'm writing now, it's almost complete, is Onyx. It's an Egyptian-based theme.
Okay.
And then Chrome is after that, and then the next book is Indigo, which deals with invisibility. But all the characters are related to what has happened in Cobalt and the effects that it's had on people, and what are the downfalls, what are the pitfalls of working on something that could change the world forever, but when something good happens, obviously something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
So I've tried to balance it out. The entire series, if you look at it as a whole, is basically we're going to reset planet Earth through AI, and there's a reason for it. And I know we were talking earlier about females. There's a reason for that also.
Okay, cool.
Which is when I got hurt, a lot of my wife is a very strong woman. She's actually the owner of our publishing company, Pseudosynth Press. I wanted to do when I started doing Cobalt, I wanted to do a homage to her because she is such a strong person and a strong woman. So I decided early on that I would make this first series of books female-driven, female character-driven, make them strong, intelligent, make them smart. None of this foo-foo-y stuff.
Yeah.
They're some of them kick butt. Other ones, are very smart. So it's a fusion of the male and the female antagonist and protagonist, but the main characters are all actual real female people that I know that are very, very strong.
Okay.
I've tried to, in Chrome, the main character is actually she's a California State Patrolman, Lori Gutierrez. So I've tried to do a mixing and a mashing of these characters.
Well, that's certainly going to make the women happy. That sounds really interesting, though. You were talking about the old movies. Did you ever, back in the 50s, the Saturday matinees where you just paid like a little, it was like less than $1, and you got to stay all afternoon and watch three, maybe 4 movies?
I heard from my father, because I wasn't alive then.
Okay.
I heard from my father how he used to do that, and he went to the matinee one afternoon with his buddies, and they watched The House of the Fall of the Usher.
Yeah.
The matinee, and ran out screaming. And when I was growing up, we had Friday night, in Cleveland, where I grew up, we had Big Chuck and Houlihan, and they had the Friday night show at 11 o'clock, and then we had the Ghoul, we had Ghoulardi, we had host on Saturday afternoons, and this was all like UHF, this was during the 70s, on UHF channels, and we would always run the monster movies and the B movies, and I could not get enough of these things.
So the reason I was asking that's the way I was at those movies, the black and white science fiction movies in the 50s. I think I've seen every one of them. I just loved watching them.
Well, and you know, I've gone back now that we have Amazon Prime and we have Netflix. We can go back and watch them again.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I mean, I watched the other day. I watched the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah,
in black and white.
Yeah,
and the Puppet Masters with Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, and so what I've tried to do and what I've always loved is the twists. The big twists in the old movies that were taken from these books from, you know, Bradbury and who had these wonderful twists in their books. And I've tried to when I write the end of the book first. I write the last chapter first, always. In fact, I may write more than one last chapter. And I'll keep them to the side. And I'll say, well, this may be a big twist, but I've got a bigger twist coming. Every one of my books, at the end, have at least 2 to 3 chapters that are really big twists that will just drive you nuts thinking about it the next day. And I always love that about a book. I love putting it down, and then the next day I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that you're more of a plotter than a pantser?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that comes from my engineering side.
Uh-huh.
I have everything on flow charts and graphs. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I'm a ex-programmer, a retired programmer, so I know what you're talking about.
Exactly, right. So, you know, having I put binary language at the end of all my books. You'll see pages filled with ones and zeros. If you have an e-copy of my book and you take those ones and zeros and you copy them and you go to binary to text and you plug them in, it'll give you either a hint for the next book or it'll give you something cool that I wanted to tell you.
All right. So we're not only reading a story, but we're almost playing a game while we're reading a story. Huh?
Exactly. Not the most people that I've ever found, or the most Easter eggs anyone has ever found in COBOL is 27 out of 50. And so I ran when COBOL first came out, I ran a promotion, and I said, here's what the Easter eggs are like. This is what you're looking for. You're looking for events in science fiction movie history, people, places, things, writers, and the person that finds the most by this date, I'm going to throw you a T-shirt and some mugs and some other stuff.
Cool. Very cool.
Which we did with both Cobalt and Crimson. Crimson is actually, Cobalt's more of a Frankenstein type book. Cobalt is dedicated to Hammer Films, and Emerald is a dedication to a movie, my favorite movie of all time, which is 5 Million Years to Earth.
Yes, that was a good one.
That is what Emerald does. Emerald has actually 5 rabbit holes contained inside of it, in the middle of it. So I take you through a couple of rabbit holes, and then I throw you out on the other side, and then I kind of mess with your mind a little bit, and then at the end comes a couple of twists and turns, and I also give you a little glimpse into heliotrope, which I forgot to tell you about. Heliotrope. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be having much. I'm in so much pain every day. I mean, I really hate talking about the pain that I'm in because I just had reconstructive back surgery again in February from L2 all the way to S1, where they took out everything and put everything back in again. So I basically sit every day at bags of ice and I just write.
Yeah.
It's basically, now it's turned into my life. And while it's turned into my life, I've decided that I'm going to try to give the readers the pops and the twists and everything that they're asking me for. And it's starting to gain a little bit of a good following. And I'm really surprised. I didn't expect it to do as well as the series was doing, but it seems to be taking off, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
It looks like we started probably about the same time, near the end of 2015 is when I see Cobalt came out.
Right.
And it does take a little time to build up a following, but as you keep at it, you slowly start to do that. And these sound like some good books. They got some great reviews. I really like the covers are done really well. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
They're really look good.
I appreciate that. My artist is she's amazing. She is one of a kind, and she's the only one I'll let touch me. As long as she'll have me, keep having me. I told her. I said, I want you to keep doing my books. And she's like, you're my best customer. She's obviously, she lives in Kiev. She's, probably never been out of the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Not that well. But what I convey to her back and forth as far as the cover art and the work, she's done. I couldn't ask for anything more. It's like a dream coming out of your head, and there's the cover.
Yeah, I've worked with some artists too. It's just amazing. That's one thing I can never do is draw.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some really talented people out there, and like you, the artist I found was in Romania, and they just do such great work, and they don't charge an arm and a leg to do it.
Exactly.
And it just makes me want to give them a tip at the end. You're just doing more than what you're charging.
And it's funny that you should say that, because last week I actually did do that, and I said,
yeah,
an invoice for some more money, and she's like, why? I said, because you deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve it for the type of work and the amount of work that you do. You deserve more money than you're charging me.
Yeah.
And she actually works for a gaming studio doing stills and characters for video games.
Great. Yeah.
It means that she actually has a job and she's working, but when she does get time, she does my little sketches that I'll sketch up for her, and I'll say, I need this here and there. And her and I have hidden on all our covers. If you were to blow our covers up, we've hidden 27 phrases and names on the back and front of every cover.
All right. You're big on hiding things like that, aren't you?
I hide things inside now. I love those type of movies. I love those type of it goes back to the days, and I know you probably remember this. I don't know if you ever actually did it, but when we used to take the pencil eraser and turn the records backwards.
Oh yeah.
To hear the hidden messages.
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly how I found out that the Chipmunks were all David Seville. I always thought they were different voices, and then one day I did that, and I go, hey, they all sound like David Seville.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, but I've always been fascinated with that, and so I said, I'm going to do this in my books. I don't care how long it takes me. I don't care how hard I got to work. I don't care how many copies I got to do or how many drafts to make this work. And I just want it to be a fun read. Whether or not you actually look into it or not, it's just for fun.
Are you active on social media like Facebook?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Have you found the indie author community? Have they found them quite helpful? Or?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
the Indie Publishing News and Claire. I think you know Claire.
Yeah.
I love her to death. Jackie loves her. We are on different sites. We're just now starting, if I can walk, which I have a hard time walking without a walker, but if I can walk, I'm going to hit our first Comic-Con in May.
Wow, yeah.
And our website has got, we also publish poetry. We help poets get some books made. We do some fantasy books by Jack Crosby, and we help other authors out.
Yeah.
And the reason that we do that is because early on, we were helped out by people that I did not know and who took the time to help us out either by giving us advice or helping us out financially.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give back. I don't charge for doing basic cover work. I do it myself. I'll do basic cover work for artists that want a cover done. I'll do formatting for somebody if they want it done.
Yeah.
If it takes me 30 minutes out of my day or an hour out of my day, I'm happy to do it for them.
Yeah. You've got a blog too, I was noticing. Is there any particular thing you write about in your blog, or you just whatever you're thinking at the time?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of them where I've done my own character interviews.
Okay.
Before Emerald came out, I wanted to interview Zan. And so I took a actual character out of Emerald who was a reporter and had her interview the main character in Emerald.
Okay.
That's a lot of fun to me because it not only helps me to write the character the way it should be written, but it's also it kind of helps me build the story along.
Yeah.
And I know that you probably or I saw that you do some where you would interview characters.
Yeah, characters are, to me, a character is the most important part of a story.
Right.
If you don't have a character, it's just another scenic tour.
Exactly. Exactly. So I rely heavily on the way that the characters speak, the way they I find that my writing of them is getting a lot tighter as I go along. It's getting a lot smoother, a lot simpler. I guess that's a good sign.
Yep.
As far as writing goes. I am fairly new to the game, but I do have something to say, and I'm trying to say it in the funnest and the most sarcastic way that I can. I'm telling you, if you like my books, hang tight with me because there's more coming down the pike, and it's all about getting what's out of your head.
Yeah.
And you know how that is.
They demand to be heard.
Your brain is working overtime.
Yeah.
And some of the best writing I do is when I shut my laptop off and I have my journal sitting next to me.
Yeah.
It continues in my head. And
Well, we're about to run out of time here, but I want to let you know and let everybody know we're going to have links to your website, your blog, and all that on the episode page once it comes out and it's posted, and those will all be there permanently so that everybody will be able to find you after they listen to the show. And like I said, this is all pre-recorded, but we'll make sure that all gets out there, and if I need anything in between now and then, I'll be getting in touch with you.
Well, thank you.
And before we go, let's just have one more thing. Just what advice would you give to someone out there, especially knowing how hard it is to do what you want to do, but just to get there and do it? How would you explain that to someone who may be struggling to become a writer and afraid they can't make it?
I would say never give up. Never say die. Don't ever let anyone sway you or tell you that what you're doing is that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Always keep a journal by your side. You've got that plot or that story that's nagging you in the back of your head. Write it down. Even if you don't write it today, it'll be there. You can go back and look at it.
Yeah, that's good. Good advice. Take notes always.
Always keep a journal with you. I take one wherever I go, even if I go to the doctor's office with me. I may see something weird or something may pop in my head. And I put it down. Always keep a journal with you. Keep at it. Write when you can. Sometimes you're not inspired to write. Sometimes you don't feel like writing. Try to do it anyways. You'll find out that all of a sudden you've written 1,000 words or 2,000 words. And I would just say don't get down about yourself. Do not beat yourself up about your work. We've got editors. There are people out there that will help you, and there's people like me that will help you if you need it.
So. Amen. Well, thank you. And again, like I said, we'll have the links and everything. And I want to thank you for joining us today on the show. And everyone, check out C.G. Blade's books. Check out his website. See what he's got to offer. If you like science fiction and artificial intelligence, I think you're going to like what he's got to offer. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Kay Gantus from Author Assist. I'm a freelance writer and author of 8 books and over 35 publications. I have been in this business for over 25 years, and I'm proud to call myself an indie author. However, being independent comes with a lot of responsibilities that take time, skill, and experience, all of which I have, and for this reason I now offer my time and experience to other indie authors. My services include, but are not limited to, virtual assistance, social media consultancy, marketing and promotional management, blog tours, event and party hosting, setting up and the promotion of Head Talker and Thunderclap campaigns, branding, logo design, narration, book trailers, newsletter and sign-ups, bookmark design, teaser and banner design packages. All permanent positions and services come with regular updates via video meetings or phone calls. Even when our arrangement has ended, I'm always around to give advice and answer any questions that the author has. If any of these services interest you and you'd like to discuss them further, then please get in touch with me via Facebook at Kgantus Author Assist or email kgantusauthораssist@gmail.com. Samples and testimonials are available on request. I look forward to chatting with you.
The following is a reading from my book, The Shadow of Narwan. The cold morning air was filled with the sound of horns, amid shouts from the soldiers, all along the line of troops, as the mass of Warwicks began their charge across the plain. "Here they come!" shouted Argynwulf. He had anticipated their attack, but now he feared more than just Warwicks, as a massive number of the wolf-like creatures came rushing across the open space between the opposing forces. He continuously scanned the sky, expecting Doomrage to attack, but no sight of him had been seen since he landed somewhere behind the enemy lines to the south. Pikemen readied their long spears and kite shields to receive the charging Warwicks, while magicians prepared to use their magic for shielding against arrows or Doomrage should he join the attack. Men aimed the scores of catapults at the advancing enemy. Argynwulf stood with the large group of archers at his command, bows drawn and ready, his right hand extended out in front of him to signal when to fire. As the beasts closed in, Argynwulf and dozens of other commanders along the line dropped their hands, and the sky was blackened by thousands of arrows flying in an arch over the front line and down towards the charging Warwicks. The rain of arrows thudded into their ranks, and Warwicks fell, pierced by the sturdy shafts, tumbling and rolling, only to trip up others. The front of the charge disintegrated into a mass of fur and blood. While a jumbled mass fell under the arrowed onslaught, thousands more continued their run for the front line. A hail of large boulders from the catapults filled the sky and crashed down into the oncoming creatures, smashing and knocking aside many as the boulders rolled through their ranks. A second volley of arrows brought down even more. Many hundreds of warrior bodies now lay lifeless, but the mass of fur and slobbering teeth continued to proceed towards the defending armies, undaunted and not slowing. The Warwicks charged into the front line with snarling and howling force, running straight into the spears of the pikemen. They did their best to withstand the force of the charge, but some pockets along the line gave way, and the swordsmen behind the front line joined in the melee. It then became clear that the Warwicks were only the first wave, as an even larger number of Morocks came rushing towards them. The Warwicks had taken the brunt of the aerial assault by their archers' arrows and the catapults, and by the spears of the pikemen, but they were the buffer for the true attacking force of Morocks, that soon found holes in the line caused by the Warwick's charge, and clashed into the armies of Elsu with devastating force. The clang of metal hitting shields and the sickening sounds of slicing flesh rang throughout as the armies collided. Argynwulf had drawn his sword and dagger and was stabbing, hacking, and slashing at the Morocks who crossed his path. Nearby, Rylock was swarmed by Morocks, but his heavy armor protected him for the most part. His slashing blade rose and slammed down into the mass of green goblin flesh around him, while his shield bashed the little monsters away. The air became thick with the smell of sulfur as the Morocks were cut open and their yellow blood covered the defenders in the battlefield. An axe caught Argynwulf on the back of his left leg, and he felt himself losing balance as intense pain shot up through his thigh. If he fell in this mass of enemies, he wouldn't be able to defend himself, and his thoughts suddenly turned to Cien, as he expected this to be his end. As he felt himself going down, Argynwulf saw a flash of white, and the Morocks around him seemed to fall back, giving him a much-needed reprieve. He then realized Remura had just jumped into the fight, protecting him, as his wounded leg collapsed under him and he hit the ground. Having pushed the Morocks back a bit, Remura turned and laid low on the ground next to Argynwulf. "Grab hold," came Remura's urgent voice into the ranger's mind. Argynwulf grabbed the fur on Remura's back and pulled himself onto the great lion, using all his remaining strength. Remura then stood and jumped over the Morocks, bringing Argynwulf to Rylock's tent, well away from the fighting. As Argynwulf slid off the cat's back, he felt a warmth in his leg, and the pain faded away. When he looked, the wound was mostly healed, and the pain was gone. Looking up at Remura, Argynwulf smiled. "Thanks, my friend. I thought I was fighting my last battle there for a moment," he said aloud. Remura's voice came into his mind with a sense of camaraderie that Argynwulf had not expected from the giant cat. "You're welcome, brother." The sound of the horns brought their attention back to the battle, and what Argynwulf had feared most made its presence known. Doomrage's thundering wings could be heard above the din of combat on the ground. Arrows flew at the shadowy image, but passed harmlessly through its incorporeal form. Shouts were heard as magicians tried to get the shield spells in place, but because of the distraction of the Morocks, some were not in time. A blast of white-hot flame shot forth from Doomrage's gaping maw, slamming into a section of the line with tremendous force. The screams of both men and Morocks could be heard as the column of flames tore into the line, the force of the blast sending burning bodies flying in all directions. When it was over, there was a gaping 50-yard wide break in the front line. Rylock had just fought off the last of his attackers as the Morocco onslaught diminished. He saw the inviting hole in their lines, ready to be filled with more Morocks. Their forces would be split, the enemy gaining ground behind them. "Close the gap! Close the gap!" shouted Rylock, and others soon took up the chant. A force of Morlocks was already heading for the newly opened break in the line. Doomrage, seeing the result of his interference, chuckled with a booming voice above as he turned and flew back to the south, satisfied with his accomplishment. "We are undone," said Rylock to himself, realizing their forces would not be able to seal the breach. If you would like to submit a book reading for use in one of our podcast episodes, please contact us. Also, if you have news about an event or book release, you can submit that information to us for possible inclusion in the next episode. The deadline to be included in a Saturday podcast is the previous Wednesday. Just send your submissions or information to news@tomfallwell.com. That's all we have for you this week. I encourage you to follow the podcast so you will be notified when a new episode is published. Thanks for joining me this week, and I hope you will stop by and listen again next week to Ride On with Tom Fallwell. Until then, ride on.